Hi everyone, this week we continue our study of history. We have already studied prehistory and ancient history, so this week we'll study the Middle Ages. Can you see the castle and the knight? The modern age. Can you see the old ship? And the contemporary age. Can you see the flag of France? Well, let's begin. First, let's remember. Do you remember our timeline of history? Say the 5 main periods. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Prehistory, ancient history, the Middle Ages, the modern age, and the contemporary age. Good job. This week we study the last 3. The Middle Ages, the modern age, and the contemporary age. So prehistory and ancient history are finished. This week we study the Middle Ages, the modern age, and the contemporary age. Do you remember? This is to give you the general idea. All right, let's look at the Middle Ages. On our hand of PAMMC, it's the letter M. So now on our timeline, it's the Middle Ages. When did it start? Well, it started with the fall of the Roman Empire. Remember, the Romans were a civilization that lived in ancient history, but like all empires, well, one day it ended. That was the beginning of the Middle Ages, and it ended with the discovery of America. That happened in the year 1492. So the Middle Ages cover about 1,000 years of history. That's a long time. Now, what happened in the Middle Ages? I'm going to tell you 2 basic ideas. The first idea is this. The Middle Ages, well, it was a time of wars, many wars. Can you see the knights? Yes, knights fought wars. It was a dangerous time, so people built castles. And there are many beautiful castles in Spain. Even in our city, Malaga, you can see the Alcazaba, which is a castle and a fortress from the Middle Ages. A second idea. The Middle Ages, well, it was a time when religion was very important. But not just one religion. In Spain, there were 3 religions. There were Christians and Muslims and Jews living together in the same place, 3 different religions. Well, let's look at their symbols. The symbol of Christians was a cross, of Muslims, a half moon, and of Jews, the Star of David. Let's look at some pictures of people. Maybe a Christian from the Middle Ages looked like this, and maybe a Muslim looked like this, and maybe a Jew looked like this in the Middle Ages. And the buildings, what did they make? Well, Christians built churches and cathedrals. For example, the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela was built by Christians in the Middle Ages. Muslims built mosques. For example, the Mosque of Cordoba was built by Muslims in the Middle Ages. And Jews built synagogues. For example, the Synagogue of Toledo was built by Jews in the Middle Ages. So in conclusion, the Middle Ages were a time of wars, and also it was a time when religion was very important. Religion was at the heart of everything that happened in the Middle Ages. Let's continue. Let's look at the modern age. So in PAMMC, it's the second letter M for the modern age. It started with the discovery of America. That was in the year 1492 with Christopher Columbus. And it ended with the French Revolution in 1789. So it's about 300 years of history. What happened in the modern age? Well, I'm going to tell you 2 ideas. First, in the modern age, kingdoms became countries. Think about this. At the beginning of the modern age, well, Spain was not just one country. There were different kingdoms. There was the crown of Castile, of Aragon. Portugal was also a different kingdom, and Navarra was separate. And even look in the south, there was a Muslim kingdom of Granada, and our city, Malaga, was part of that kingdom. But in the modern age, that changed. Spain was unified into one country. So the kingdoms became a country. That happened in Spain and in other places too. But it didn't stop there. These countries became empires because, well, when Christopher Columbus traveled across the Atlantic Ocean and discovered America, European powers conquered the territories and they had big empires now. Spain was not just one country. Look at the colors on this map. Can you see the yellow-brown color? Spain had control of big parts of North America, of South America, other parts of Europe, and even parts of Asia. And the green color was under the control of Portugal, which was also part of the Spanish Empire when this man was king. His name was Philip II. Well, at this time, kings had absolute power. And in the modern age, this idea of absolutism, where kings have absolute power, was very important. So we know that in the modern age, the different kingdoms became countries, and the countries became empires. But there's one more idea I want to tell you from the modern age. It was a time of culture. The Renaissance. Renaissance means rebirth. In Spanish you say renacimiento. It was a time of culture in art. For example, in Italy, Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa, and in Spain, Velázquez painted Las Meninas, and there were many more paintings, examples of incredible art from the Renaissance. But also it was a time of literature. For example, in Spain, in the modern age, this was the time when Miguel de Cervantes wrote Don Quixote, the most famous book in the history of the Spanish language in the modern age. And also in architecture, there were many famous buildings built at this time. One is called El Escorial. It's in Madrid. You can visit it today, and it was built in the modern age. Okay, and now let's continue. The contemporary age. It's the letter C in our hand. The contemporary age started with the French Revolution in 1789. It continues today in the present. Right now, we are in the contemporary age. So that's about 230 years of history. Well, what happened in the contemporary age? I'll tell you two ideas. The first idea is that the contemporary age was a time of revolution. A revolution is a war or a time of fast change. For example, the French Revolution. In France, people didn't like the idea that the king had absolute power, so they killed the king. They cut off his head. But also, there was the American Revolution, where the same thing. Americans were fighting against the King of England, and it happened in other countries. There were revolutions. But there were more revolutions too. The Industrial Revolution happened all around the world, where new machines made fast changes. Trains and other machines, that factories appeared, cities got bigger, everything changed. They call it the Industrial Revolution, and that happened in the contemporary age. Well, one more idea. The contemporary age was a time of, and it is a time of, technology. For example, think about this. In the contemporary age, this simple machine was invented. It's called a dynamo. And this made it possible to control and to use electricity. So we can have electric light in our houses, or traffic lights in the streets. Or we can have washing machines and cookers with ovens in our houses, and televisions and fridges. All of these things that we use every day are based on inventions from the contemporary age. But there's also technology that changed transportation. Think about this. From the first bicycles to modern bicycles, they're inventions in the contemporary age. From the first trains to modern high-speed trains. From the first car to modern cars. From the first airplane, wow, look at this. These are the Wright brothers with the very first airplane. And there it goes. Humans can fly now. To modern airplanes. and even with transportation in space. There has been so much change in technology in the contemporary age. And one more, think about the changes in communications in the contemporary age, from the first telephone to modern mobile phones, from the first computers to modern computers, from the radio to the television to the internet, which you are using right now, with millions of computers connected all around the world. There have been many changes in technology, and all of these changes happened in the contemporary age, and they continue today. Well, today you've learned about the Middle Ages, the Modern Age, and the Contemporary Age, the MMC on our hand. Prehistory and ancient history, we studied that last week. This week we studied the Middle Ages, the Modern Age, and the Contemporary Age. And let's remember the two most important ideas from each one. I told you the Middle Ages were a time of wars. Also, it was a time when religion was at the heart of everything that happened. Christians, Muslims, and Jews were the three religions in Spain. The Modern Age was a time of empires, when kingdoms became countries and the countries became empires. And the Spanish Empire, at one moment in the Modern Age, was the biggest in the world. Also, the Modern Age was a time of the Renaissance, of cultural rebirth. The Contemporary Age was a time of revolution, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, of big change, and the idea that the king does not have absolute power anymore. No, now people have power. And finally, it was a time of technology, where there were big changes in inventions, from electricity to communications to transportation to everything we have today. And with this, we finish our study of history. But I want to finish with a question. What will happen next? We know prehistory, ancient history, the Middle Ages, the Modern Age, and the Contemporary Age. But what will be the next period of history? Well, you will decide, because you are the future. Well, thank you for watching this video and paying attention. I want to help you with the activity for this week. You have to take 6 sentences and put them in the correct period of history. So if you open your social science notebook, you'll see this page. It's the 10th of June 2020, the Middle Ages, the Modern Age, and the Contemporary Age. Complete the table. Copy the sentences in the correct place. So there are 6 sentences. Read them, think, and put them in the correct period. There were 3 religions in Spain: Christians, Muslims, and Jews. Now, was this in the Middle Ages, the Modern Age, or the Contemporary Age? If you remember, it was in the Middle Ages. So I'll write it here. There were 3 religions in Spain: Christians, Muslims, and Jews. That's the first one. Now the second one. It was a time of revolution. The Middle Ages, the Modern Age, or the Contemporary Age? That's the Contemporary Age. It was a time of revolution. Remember, it started with the French Revolution, also the American Revolution, the Industrial Revolution. A revolution is a war or just a period of fast change. So that was the Contemporary Age. Next, it was a time of many wars. So people built castles for protection. Do you remember there were many castles in the Middle Ages? All right, so let's write this one. It was a time of many wars. So people built castles for protection. And Spain is a beautiful country, in part because there are so many incredible castles that you can visit, and you can imagine what life was like in the Middle Ages. Let's continue. It was a time when kingdoms became countries. Well, that was in the modern age. It was a time when kingdoms became countries. The country of Spain, as one country, started to exist in the modern age. Before that, they were kingdoms, a little bit different. So Spain became a country and then an empire in the modern age. Next, it was a time of fast changes in technology. That was the contemporary age, where we are now. So it was a time of fast changes in technology. That's the contemporary age. And finally, it was a time of culture, the Renaissance. There's only one more. That was the modern age. Remember, in art, in literature, and architecture, the Renaissance was from the modern age, mostly. It was a time of culture, the Renaissance. And now you are finished. And now you know two basic but very important ideas about the three periods of history that we studied: the Middle Ages, the Modern Age, and the Contemporary Age. Good job, boys and girls. I know this is a lot, but you did it. And with this, you're finished with our study of history. Yes.